Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited to sit down and do a first impression demo and wear test on a brand new foundation from Fenty Beauty. So I picked up the new Soft Lit Naturally Luminous Long Wear Foundation and I just want to put it to the test. So I'm going to be applying this, seeing how it looks on the skin, doing a wear test with a couple check-ins, and then I'll give you my initial first impression on this foundation. So I will link this down below as well as all the other makeup that I end up putting on. If you're new here, I hope you stick around and subscribe. And if you like first impressions, give this video a thumbs up and let's go ahead and get into it. So I always like to go over the product claims and information before we get into the demo. So I picked this up from Sephora. This is the Fenty Beauty Soft Lit Naturally Luminous Long Wear Foundation. Now this is $40. You do get 32 ml or 1.08 ounces. There are 50 different shades. I picked up the shade 210, which is supposed to be a light medium neutral. And this is described as a hydrating and glowy foundation. It's waterproof and reduces shine for a notch above natural finish. It does say that it is hydrating, long wearing, medium coverage, and waterproof, which is a pretty big claim. So in terms of how to use it, it says be sure to moisturize your skin, shake before use, and then it says for medium coverage, you can use a sponge, and for full coverage, you can use a foundation brush. Of course, they say to use their foundation brush, but this is what the box packaging looks like. And again, I did my best to get the right shade, but I struggle, especially online. So I went with 210, which was supposed to be neutral. Looking at it here, I can't really tell because it has the frosted bottle, but this is what the packaging looks like. Frosted bottle, very clean and simple. So I'm gonna go ahead and shake this, and then I wanna swatch it and see what the consistency feels like. Okay, so you can see that this also has a pump. I feel like this shade actually might be pretty good. It does feel quite liquidy. It definitely runs down your hand when you swatch it. And this is a neutral shade. I didn't want to go for something that was warm because I've heard that Fenty products oxidize sometimes. Lately when I get warm shades, I feel like they're just pulling way too warm. So I wanted to opt for something more on the neutral side. So a little bit goes a long way. It does seem to have some good coverage. I'm interested to see how this gives me a luminosity. A lot of times with luminous or hydrating foundations, especially lately, they feel like they're very thick and emollient and they have that skincare type of feel. This does not. It's very thin. It doesn't feel heavy upon swatching it. So I'm interested to see how it gives me that glow because I'm not seeing any sort of luminosity when I swatch it, let's say like the Makeup by Mario foundation. So I want to go ahead and zoom you in and we'll just apply this and see what we think. All right, so I've got you zoomed in, and as far as skin prep, I wanted to go with a moisturizer that I use almost every day, which is the Freck Rich Moisturizer. I've gone through more tubes than I can count of this. It just works beautifully with my skin type. I would say I'm combo. I used to think I was combo oily, but as I get a little bit older, I feel like I'm leaning more just like combo and maybe dry in certain areas. I can get oily through the T-zone, so of course we will see how my skin looks as I wear this. But I thought that I would use a pore smoothing primer just on one side of my face to see if we can notice a difference in terms of how my texture looks. My go-to is the Glowish Blur Jam from Huda Beauty. So I'm just gonna take a little bit out and I wanna apply this only on this side of my face. I wanna see if I feel like this foundation is flattering on pores or if the pore smoothing primer really does make a huge difference. So I'm just gonna blend this on this side. And then on this side of my face, I just have the moisturizer and nothing else. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pump out just one pump to start. And in terms of application, I'm gonna use a beauty blender on the side with the primer, and then I'm gonna use a brush on the other side, just because it says you get a medium coverage with a sponge, you get a full coverage if you use a little bit more with a brush. So I'm just going to dip in and start applying. I have not had the best luck with Fenty complexion products, except for the Ease Drop Skin Tint and the Pressed Powder. Those are really, really nice products for my skin type, but the actual like concealers and foundations from Fenty just have not worked for my skin. I really like, just upon my first impression, how lightweight this is. Again, I feel like lately so many products that are coming out, complexion products, are very hydrating and emollient, and they are so heavy. I don't like that feel where they're sticky and they sort of slide all over the skin. So this actually feels nice and light and thin. I just pumped out one more pump and I'm going to continue to apply this. I feel like this is a solid medium coverage. I'm not struggling to build this and it looks really beautiful. I'm really hoping that this wears well. A lot of times more hydrating or luminous foundations just don't wear as long. It is so hard to blend into your hairline as a bleach blonde. Okay, so this is what my skin is looking like with 2 pumps using a damp sponge on this side with the primer. I feel like it looks really, really nice, you guys. Nice radiance to it, but again, I'm not seeing any sort of glitter or illuminating properties like the Makeup by Mario one. If you're familiar with that, it has some sort of like luminosity in it, but this feels so lightweight and it has coverage. Typically, I don't feel like I see that. They're just either super heavy or they have like no coverage. They're like a skin tint. This is a very nice medium coverage, builds with no effort. So I have high hopes. This looks way better than I thought it would on my skin type, but I wanna go in next with a brush. So I just have an e.l.f. Duo brush and I am gonna pump out again, starting with 1 pump. This side just has moisturizer and I wanna see how this lays on pores and texture with no like pore primer. It did say that you would get full coverage with a brush. Comparing the two just upon application, I feel like they both are pretty close in terms of like how much coverage I'm seeing. I am noticing that I probably won't need to use as much on the brush side because I still have a decent amount left. So 1 pump with the brush, 2 pumps with the sponge. Okay, so this is what the foundation looks like freshly applied. The only difference I'm noticing really is the fact that I look a little bit more glowy on the side that I used the sponge, but I also used double the product. So it's really up to you. I feel like I got the same coverage on both sides, but again, I just used less with the brush. I prefer the way it looks with the sponge, but honestly, either application I would be fine with. It feels really light. It has a glow to it, but it just feels different than most foundations that have a glow on the market. It doesn't have anything that I feel like is enhancing my texture. I don't feel like either side really looks super enhanced because I haven't powdered yet, so I really want to see how it plays with powder, but I don't feel like this side looks, you know, crazy worse than the side with the primer. That leads me to believe that it probably isn't going to be finicky and you're not going to need to really prep your skin if you have texture. Let's hope. But I really think this looks nice. Good medium coverage, very easy to build. And I like that it's not chock full of fragrance. I didn't notice any fragrance now that I'm thinking about it. No problems with it sticking to my nose, which typically can be an issue again with more emollient foundations. So I am going to jump off here, just do the rest of my makeup, very minimal light makeup, and then we will come back and do some more close-ups. I'll give you my thoughts on how it plays with other products, and then we will start our wear test. Okay guys, so I went ahead and finished the rest of my makeup. I will link everything that I'm wearing down below in my description box, but I had 0 issues with anything blending over this foundation. I didn't use any cream products. I just used powder, bronzer, and blush, but everything blended super easily. Setting with powder was no issue. I didn't experience lifting that I do experience a lot of times with those really skincare heavy foundations. And I really think that is because this formula is so light and thin it's just different than most of the hydrating luminous foundations that we see on the market. So I just did what I would typically do, which is set my entire face. I'm not somebody that can just set, you know, on my under eye. I do have to set my whole face because I really can't stand the feeling of wet foundation. I don't feel like my skin looks overly textured on either side, and I also don't think that it looks overly luminous. I don't know, watching my camera footage, I'm gonna have to put this into my laptop and kind of see how it looks, but in person, I'm not necessarily feeling like this is over the top hydrating or luminous, but I also feel like it's pretty secure. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. I have to admit that this foundation is completely different than what I was expecting, just in every facet. So I am interested to see how this wears. Curious if I'm going to get oily or if my skin is just gonna really settle in and have that more of like luminous, dewy look. So I will be checking back in here in like 4 or 5 hours. I'm getting a little bit of a late start today. It's about 10 o'clock. So I'm gonna try to wear this until at least like 5 o'clock so I can get this video up today. So I will check back in with you guys, like I said, in like 4 or 5 hours, and then we'll do our final check-in tonight around 5 or 6 o'clock, and then I will have this video up for you guys. So I will see you guys in a little bit. All right, guys, so I am back for my first check-in. The time got away from me a little bit. It is 3:14, so it's been about 5-ish hours right now. I actually just got done doing a ton of yard work. My husband is mulching, and I picked up a bunch of sticks because we have a ton of trees, 5 acres, a pond, but then I also was mowing, and as I was mowing, my husband was like, you should tell them that this is really a good wear test. So when I came in, I was pretty surprised at how good my makeup still looks, but I want to zoom you in. I have debris like all over my face. From mowing, you can see it just all over my forehead and then all over my face. So apologies for that, but I guess we're really just doing an intense wear test. It's like 80 degrees outside. It is nice and breezy, but I really thought, you know what? I'm not gonna sit around all day in the AC just because I'm doing a wear test. So I'm really putting it to the test. Other than the sweating on my forehead and the little bits of just debris from mowing, I don't think this is really worn off. A little bit maybe on my chin, like a smidge on my chin. And again, I did not use a setting spray, which I typically would do. Now, in terms of being oily or dewy, I don't really feel like I'm either. Maybe a little bit of my natural oils coming in right through here, and again, maybe a little bit of wear on my chin, but I wanna go ahead and take a brush, try to dust away the debris that's on my skin. So I'm just gonna take a brush and try to sweep away any little bits of leaves or grass. I thought it was gonna look much worse, but it wasn't too awful bad. Okay, so I went ahead and wiped away pretty much every little speck that I could, but again, my thoughts haven't changed. I just feel like this looks pretty good, especially for what I've been doing. I don't, again, feel like this is crazy dewy or overly luminous, as I said. So for me, as a combo skin person, it's a nice twist on the luminous foundation trend, something that gives me that healthy look, but it's not making me look greasy and it's not uncomfortable. I really feel, honestly, like this is a typical matte foundation. I also am not seeing much difference in the sides, except for maybe a little bit more oil control on the side with the glowish primer, little bit smoother, little more texture, a little more oils coming through on this side. Really not surprised, that's why I love that primer, but those are my overall thoughts at the first check-in. So again, I'm gonna go on with my day and I will see you guys for the final check-in in a couple hours. All right, guys, so I am back for my final check-in. It is a little bit after 5 o'clock, so it's been a little over 7 hours. Given that I've been pretty active today, I feel like I have a good idea how this foundation wears on my skin personally. So again, I feel like I'm not noticing much difference from my previous check-in. It has only been a couple more hours, but I feel like overall, I just look a little bit more glowy. I don't feel oily in any way. I see a little bit of wear on my forehead where I was sweating. Again, things were flying and hitting me in the face as well. I do feel like I look more smooth and less oily or glowy on the side with the blurrish Glowish Blur Jam primer, which I love that primer, and that's the exact reason why I love it. It just makes my texture look better, keeps me a little bit more under control in terms of getting oily in my T-zone. I am seeing more oils coming through on the side without the primer, so again, I do look a little bit more textured on this side. But aside from the oils, I'm not noticing a difference side to side in terms of wear. I don't feel like this foundation is wearing off really anywhere other than where I was sweating, and then also a little bit on my chin area. Other than that, I feel like it's intact, and for a luminous foundation, this is pretty rare for my skin type. To me, this doesn't feel luminous. I actually like the way it feels because it's just really lightweight, as I said. I think it is definitely a different type of formula to the industry right now because everything is leaning much more like, let's say, the House Labs formula. Very thick, very hydrating. That one wears well too, but it definitely gets quite oily on me. This one seems like more of a luminous foundation for those of you that don't want something extremely hydrating and overly luminous. Maybe if you have combo skin, I think even oily skin could use this just because it wears really nicely, and you could definitely utilize a pore smoothing primer or an oil control primer, and I think that would really give you what you're looking for. I am overall pleasantly surprised with this foundation. I was fully thinking that this was going to be heavy, it wasn't going to blend right, it was going to patch and lift, and I am really shocked to say that this wore pretty nicely, especially for the activity that I did today. So of course I will continue to use it. I'd like to play around with it using more cream products, also play around with different primers and a setting spray. The fact that it's wearing this well with no setting spray, I'm pretty impressed by, again, because this is not a matte foundation. So I'll continue to test this out, but I would love to know what you guys think down below. What do you think about how my skin looks? Have you tried this? Are you picking it up? Of course, I will link this down below and also on the screen, but I am pleasantly surprised. So kudos to you, Fenty. I feel like this is a really good launch. I will link it with all the other makeup that I'm wearing down below as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, I do hope you stick around and subscribe. As always, thank you guys again so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.